going.
Nobody's watching. Don't worry. Okay, there we go.
All
So
right.
how come you, once you do that like once or twice in our very beginning intro, you forget about it the rest of the show?
I know.
Yeah.
Well, you have to remind me.
What's the fun in that?
I know. I'll try and remember.
Okay, you're supposed to surprise me.
You're out of sight, out of mind, right? So
Yeah.
there's a page for it.
Right. Well, clap for yourself for having that. Okay. Is that an app you got, or what is that? Boing. Is there a gong?
Oh, there's a gong.
Okay.
Yeah. We gonged. I think we gonged a few things before. So, with that, I think the show is officially started.
Fantastic. How are you today?
Good.
Good. 9:02 Pacific time on Friday, May 1st. This year is going fast.
That is true.
You were letting me know in a meeting the other day that I'm behind on some things. So I got to get on it.
Okay. All right. Well,
How's that?
start of a new month.
It is. And the start of a new month. Stock market had its best month since the pandemic in April. What are your thoughts on that? You follow the stock market a lot closer than I do.
It's pretty remarkable, actually.
Yeah.
If you were to take a step back and look at, the war and everything that went, the roller coaster of the war and the oil prices and everything else that occurred. And I think it was just like, as I told you before, right? The market is based on momentum, and you've had strong momentum, and it just keeps, building up. So money keeps flowing in. And as long as money keeps flowing in and the momentum keeps going, it'll keep going up. And then there'll be a point where it won't. It will reverse.
When is that? Can you let us all know right now when that's coming so we know?
Yeah, I think we're going to see another good month, a decent month, probably not like we saw in April and in May. It'll be interesting to see, summer tends to slow down, and some, volume tends to slow down a little bit. Although over the last couple of years, it hasn't been that way. I think, again, with so much computerized trading and everything like that, it's not quite the same as it used to be.
Well, we'll hold on and watch the ride, see what's happening. I'm sure you were pumping money in all month, right?
I pump a little bit in. It was a good month. It's a good month.
Well, I bought my fancy new glasses, so I couldn't put money in the stock market.
Yeah, I hope the stock market paid for your glasses this month. So
it could have over the last few months with some things, or even you've got a little bounce with the crypto. So that was a positive thing as well. So we're excited about to see where that goes. Well, let's dive into our show. Lots to talk about today. We've got some great information on the economy, some supply chain stuff, some cool stuff regarding AI, as we always talk about at some level, but some good stuff regarding distribution and M&A and so forth as well as we dive in. But before we do that, I'm Kevin Brown. I'm here with my lifelong friend and co-founder of Lead Smart Technologies, Tom Burton. Today is 188. I'm just realizing, Tom, we have 12 weeks. That's 3 months. We haven't talked about it in 3 or 4 weeks. We have got to do some planning for the 200th show.
Okay, so what is 12 weeks from now? May, June, July. It's like May to June, so it'd be right around the 1st of August, I guess.
Yeah. And
Bob says right or till she bucks you. I think he's referring to the stock market.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Morning,
on the comment coming in. Yeah. So the it's funny. Someone says in January 2025 took 250K out and will never put it back in as long as a Republican is in office. Okay. Well, there we go.
I think you're probably losing money.
Yeah. So much for that thought, but it's up to you. Got a little interesting one. When you're live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, some of the stuff that comes in is kind of interesting as we scour through those things. But anyways, back to our introduction. We're such a professional show here, aren't we?
Yeah.
So again, 188 in August. We've got to look at that and get some planning done for our 200th show. We had a great panel and a great lineup and a lot of fun when we did our 100th show. So I can't believe it's been this long. But Tom and I get together every week. We have a great slate of guests coming up. We've got Mark Gillum with Enable. Mark's a finance guy and works with Enable that does rebate management and so forth for some great customers and partners of ours. We've got Taylor St. Germain coming. We've got some e-commerce experts coming. We've got a handful of good folks coming in the coming weeks. So we're looking forward to all of that. But again, we do this every week. We get together and we have a chat. It's kind of funny, Tom. It makes me think is I get 3 to 5 emails every week from PR people that are trying to promote people to be on the podcast. And none of them have ever, I don't say none of, very rarely are they people who have ever paid attention to the format of our show, because we're a highly successful podcast, kind of bounce around in the top 1, 2, or 3 spot globally in wholesale distribution and manufacturing. And I think people see that and they reach out to want to get their clients on our show. And then when I ask them to go listen to the show, they realize their clients probably wouldn't be a fit and couldn't keep up. So we move pretty quick on the show. But again, we do our show. We talk about the newsletter that we publish each week, which is called Around the Horn in Wholesale Distribution and Manufacturing. It goes out to, I think we're 12,000 plus. We got to get a look at that now. We're growing and excited about that part of it. So if you don't get that newsletter and you would like to, we'd love nothing more than to get that out to you. You can get it one of 3 simple ways. If you're on LinkedIn consistently, you could look the show up there and you'll see the opportunity to subscribe to the show. And if you go to the Lead Smart Technologies page, we'd love it if you click the follow button there. And on the left-hand column, about halfway down, it says newsletter, and you can subscribe there. We have a website for the show. It's called it's at www.aroundthehornpod.com. And then finally, you can send us an email at hello@leadsmarttech.com, and we would be happy to get that newsletter out to you as well. Just request what you would like at that email address, hello@leadsmarttech.com. So again, we do this each week. We review the newsletter and the happenings of the week in the economy and supply chain and M&A and technology and so forth. And along with that, we give some perspective on how that applies to wholesale distribution and manufacturing. You might wonder why Tom and I have any relevance related to wholesale distribution and manufacturing. Tom and I work together at Lead Smart Technologies, and Lead Smart is a company that has developed what we describe as a enterprise growth platform for wholesale distributors and manufacturers. We combine sales enablement tools and technology that helps teams uncover opportunities, find risks, and get alerts to that directly to their smartphones. And we have a smart CRM solution powered within that as well. And we have tools to support marketing automation and digital selling and e-commerce tools, where we bring all of your customers' journeys from across their journey with you, their personal journeys that are in your CRM solution, their economic journey with you in your ERP, their marketing journey, and their e-commerce journey. And then we apply AI to that across all of those journeys to help you understand your customer better, your company better, and your team better. So if you are digitally expanding and going through a transformation in your organization, looking to accelerate growth, we would love to show you those tools. So that's who pays the bills to run this show, from the team we have on the front end of the show and the back end of the show. And once in a while, they even give Tom and I a paycheck. So, Tom, anything to add to that before we dive right in?
No, let's get to it.
All right. So stock market what's it doing this morning so far? Where are we at?
It's up to, Dow Jones is pretty flat. NASDAQ up 252, was up to about 300, I think, earlier. But decent gains.
Yeah. VIX is down. Gold is up. Bitcoin is up significantly. How's your crypto trading going?
It hasn't been a great 6 months. Let's put it that way.
That's why I've been buying finally.
So
how long have you been buying crypto?
Not long enough, actually. I don't know, a few years. Wish I would have been buying it back in 2011.
Just going to ask you that. I was thinking about this recently. What did Bitcoin sell for when it first launched?
It was like literally a nickel or somewhere pennies, right? What was the famous story? People were buying pizzas with their Bitcoin back in the day, and when it first came out. So yeah, I mean, it was pennies for quite a while, and then it's not pennies anymore.
So it's $78,501.95 at this moment, $78,520 as we speak. So if you had bought $1,000 worth at a nickel a share, or a nickel,
you'd literally be close to a billionaire.
It's astounding, isn't it? Okay. Well, I didn't. You didn't.
No.
I'm paying a whole lot more than that. So what happened this week? I guess the Fed decided that they were going to stand firm. We had interest rates hold.
We had interest rate hold, although there was certainly not a unanimous decision.
Well,
8
that's
to
an
4.
understatement, right?
Yeah, 8 to 4. The logic I heard, and maybe you've heard something different, for the people that dissented and wanted the rate cut, was they thought the job market was slowing significantly,
Mhm.
and that the rate cut was justified due to the job market situation.
Yep.
I think there were, certainly other opinions in a sense that, hey, was this a kind of showing the new chairman that's coming in that Warsh that, hey, we're behind you. Was there some political aspect to it? I don't know, but we've only had, I think, previously, one or two dissents. It was
That's what
kind
I
of
was.
it seemed like a strange time to have that many dissents.
So I think there's a handful of things. I think you're right in the discussion about the job market that goes with that. I think they were kind of sticking a flag in the ground that says we're going to we're the group that is going to take a little bit different position, and looking like they're going to be supportive of Kevin Warsh as the new Fed chair. I thought what was really unique about that, though, was that while in Jerome Powell's comments, he went very quickly, 3 or 4 minutes into his lengthy discussion. He went straight away to the fact of him leaving in May, but that he wasn't fully going to leave. And the expectation,
Chairman is done in May. His
chairmanship, yeah.
He's a governor until 2028 unless he steps down,
which is pretty common that they do.
which is common that they do, yes.
Right. And that's the expectation. And it was a big component of getting Warsh approved, right, was that they had to drop all of the investigations of Powell. But I didn't catch all of it. I had to flip the TV on in my office. But he was very much continuing to talk about a threat of other legal actions against the Fed and against him ongoing. He basically said he's sticking around until that is completely clear and gone.
Yes.
Not sure the value of what that brings or what he can do differently by being there in that case to change what the legal issues are. So it'll be interesting to watch. But yeah, now he is a vote versus the chairman.
Well, and he also stated that he's sticking around because he wants to make sure that there isn't political influence, and he's going to be the voice of reason against the political.
But he's 1/12 of the process now.
Right. Well, I guess he can vote against stuff or whatever, but yeah, I don't know. Or maybe,
part of me looks,
he has a lot of influence on the other people that are there, or he feels like he does.
Well, he didn't earlier in the week, did he?
No, well, not
because historically maybe he has, but that went away.
Yeah.
Right. Because you had 4 people that dissented and fairly strongly. And so that's right. That's a third of the whole body there.
Yeah.
So, I was in Cleveland last week. And in fact, I was taking a walk and I was on the phone with you. And I don't think I ever sent you the picture, but I was right in front of the Cleveland Fed office and took a little picture of that. And
go in and you should have gotten an interview.
It was 8:30 at night.
Okay.
So I'm guessing they had been gone for probably 6 hours by then.
Okay.
Those political and governmental related bodies, it's in at 9, out at 3, something like that.
So then looking ahead here, if you look to poly market.
Yep. What's it saying about June? Next
June,
meeting.
No change, 96%. And July, 89% no change, 8%, 25-point decrease. And September, for the most part, no change. Although 19%, a little bit higher here on the other side of it.
Yep.
So I don't know how these add up. These kind of weird. These don't quite add up to 100%. But
a little more, right?
It's still showing an overwhelming bias towards no change for the next several.
How do you feel about that? I'll just tell you, I'm quite surprised that hasn't changed significantly when you saw 4 dissenters earlier this week?
Yeah. In fact, it looks like no change has gone up significantly. Maybe that's because because Powell is sticking around, so they believe that potentially could have influence on that. I mean, look here, this in June, this went up 39% this week. So significant change towards no change in the week.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of what's going to happen in June with that, based upon where things are at with the war and where things are at with
yeah,
the um, fuel prices and how that plays out and so forth. I think it's interesting, and I'm not sure I understand this fully, but we have a comment here that said he's inputting political influence and by sticking around, and it makes the question that makes me ask is Powell sticking around as a governor to make sure that there's no political influence, just himself putting political influence in?
well, I don't know that he would consider himself putting in political influence. I think he is feeling like he is trying to be the stopper of political influence, right? Now,
By
you could argue as then are you politically influenced, right? But
Well, I'm just wondering what is he doing when he's trying to stop that? Is he, yeah? If you have, would he? And I don't know the answer to this. I'm literally, honestly asking a question because but it feels a little bit to me like him saying he's trying to stop that is influencing things politically.
it seems like it. Yeah, I mean, there's a political agenda, I guess you could say,
Right,
behind it.
right.
And even what this second article here says, right? He rejects that he is going to be a shadow chair. In fact, this is the first time in nearly 80 years where you've had a former chair and a new chair together in the meetings that are here.
Yeah.
Right. So, the argument, again, I don't know the people inside, but the argument I'm sure is he still has some influence, not only for just himself, but for others that are in the
Right.
other governors.
So what it seems to me that we might be seeing coming out of this, that could very much be the case, is that you've got 4 people there potentially that have said, okay, I'm done being under your thumb or your pressure of kind of towing the line. And I'm saying right now, I have a different, obviously these people, what's changed, right? We're still in this simmering mode
Not a
that
lot
we've
has
been in.
changed. No, not a, in
No,
fact, if anything, you could argue, to me, you could argue more now to not cut than you could have a few months ago
agreed. I mean, and there's
at a higher thing.
right. And there's absolutely discussion out there right now. You hear a few people mumbling here and there about, fuel prices stay up or go higher and so forth, that there should be talk about a raise in interest rates. Now you've got a far more people saying stay even or cut than you do, but we hadn't heard anything, um, um, anything about an interest rate raise in 2 years, right? Until we hit this point. But you've got now 4 people on a board of 10 who have said, we're voting for a cut.
Yeah.
Right. So that's pretty significant. And to me, this would say, how do I put this better? I think what we're seeing there is a potential risk. What's
I
going through my
actually think, and I'm just kind of looking at Bob's comment here. I actually think that Powell would be it would be better served for him to potentially just step down and move
I
on.
agree. Totally agree.
I think, look, I agree that remove all the investigation and all the legal things and get that off the plate. That seems to be a reasonably fair thing. But then just step aside and let the group do what they need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that would be the better approach, because it's like Bob's saying, is he there or is he not, right? And I don't think it's kind of a halfway in, halfway out.
So I wish I understood all of this better than I do. But here's what it looks like to me. When we look at this scenario, is I had always hoped that the Fed was not politicized and it was independent, which is what Powell jumps up and down and screams. But when you've got him at his last meeting that he's there as chair, and they've been reasonably well in lockstep for the last few years. Maybe a dissenter here and there, but reasonably well in lockstep. And in his last meeting, you've got people who have said that 4 people dissented, and then him saying, well, I'm going to stick around, which is a little bit of to assure that my power and control can make sure that this doesn't get politicized. To me, it almost speaks not just to him, but in general, there is a lot of political influence there. When you've got people that have waited till this end and a lot of pressure to toe the line. And maybe it's just this is such a fragile component of the global economy, not just the U.S. economy, that it's important that they stay in line. So, but I think the important component of this, Tom, is what we talk about here, right? Is what does this mean to wholesale distributors and manufacturers, right? So what the real play on this is that, if we're looking at developing a new facility or opening in a new market, this means that likelihood for the majority of the year that the money is going to cost you the same, and it's not going to be easier to access. This second article that we were talking about today from CNBC, talking about inside the Fed, Powell vows he won't be a shadow chair, but Warsh clash will be tough to avoid, which means he could get pushed out at some point. But it talks about the labor market in this article hitting the low signals the most since 1969. In distribution right now and manufacturing, but really in distribution, finding good people is really hard, and it has been for a number of years. We came out of the pandemic with people still getting free money, so why go to work? And then a lot of them went and found different jobs along the way, but it's harder and harder. So there's going to be likely pressure on wages and tough to get people, new people where you need them. And then if oil prices stay high through this whole thing, then we've got the supply chain issue that hits with that is raw materials and transportation costs are going to continue to stay high, right? It's tougher and tougher to get a container across the ocean, especially we've got an article later talking about the Suez Canal or the Panama Canal and the Strait of Hormuz and some of the impacts with that, right? We've got shipping costs are much higher. The cost to move a container is dramatically higher. And then if you've got trucks on the road, if you're a distributor and you've got delivery trucks out there, it's significantly more costly to have them out and about. So it would be very nice to see interest rates come down so we can see more expansion and more investment in the economy. Fuel prices come way down, and maybe some support to the labor market would certainly help the audience that we address.
Yeah, I wish I could vote on Polymarket or bet on Polymarket. I
think you can now, or Kalshi you can.
Yeah, I don't know. I know there was certainly talk of it becoming legalized, but it's in certain states, and I haven't tried it recently. But if I were to bet, I would take the bet of a rate cut in the next 90 days between the next 3 meetings, right? The June, July, and September meetings.
You would think that there will be.
I think there is a reasonable chance that there could be. I don't think it's over 50%, but I think there's a reasonable chance and a reasonable, I just think there's a reasonable chance. I don't think it'll happen in July or in June, sorry, because I don't think it'll come right in and, cut rates the day one. I think that would kind of send the wrong message also.
Yeah.
But I do think that in July or more probably in September, again, all things being equal, as long as the quote unquote, war doesn't continue or flare up faster and bigger and stronger than what we have already, I think you'll see something I think there's a reasonable probability that it will. So I would take the bet of the 8%. That would be a pretty good bet.
Yeah, I would say we're in for one. We talked about later in the year. I would suggest we're probably going to have something earlier than that.
Well, then I should figure out how to get my bet in to Polymarket. So
I think with Kalshi, I think you can do that now. Is what I'm hitting at there. Is I think there's been some updates and some changes because Kalshi is consistently promoting the fact that you can do that. So if Kalshi has the ability to do that here in the U.S. now, then you should be able to see that with Polymarket as well. I don't know which one of
I'll
them is
look into
better.
it before the next episode, and if I can do it, I'll make the bet right here on the.
That'd be pretty fun if you did that. Yeah.
We'll do it right here. I guess that's legal, right, for me to be making bets on.
Yeah. That wouldn't that be funny, right?
Um,
The FBI's at your door, Tom.
yeah, yeah. So, all right,
that's
let's hey, real quick on the Iran war, though. I think there's something we're talking about. I don't know.
Mhm.
We don't have an article here, but the War Powers Act, you may or may not have heard of that, allows the president to declare a war, but for only a 60-day period, of which point after the 60 days, Congress has to ratify and approve the
Yes.
continued war, right? Well, the war is now officially 60 days old as of, I believe today is the 60-day mark. There is some,
However,
yes, there is some Congress, I think on the Democratic side, that have introduced some legislation to stop the war. And I don't know exactly what that would mean, but to stop the war. But the Trump administration is saying, well, wait, the war is on hold, right? So we shouldn't be penalized for the days that we're in the ceasefire mode, but yet there's still things that are, going on. I wouldn't call the war
Well-
over. It might, I don't even know if I'd call it paused. I'd just kind of consider it.
well, there's a
maybe
ceasefire,
summer at the
right?
moment.
There's, and that's the pushback, right? Is it's irrelevant about what day it is because there's a ceasefire.
Right.
So there's no point that's the argument. I'm not saying what's right or wrong. I have no idea from that component, but the argument is the fact that there's a ceasefire in place. So it doesn't matter. And there's no point in anybody talking about it because it's not a day 60, it's day whatever is 60 minus whatever days there's been a ceasefire.
Well, that's
So
their argument.
Yeah.
And then the other argument is, well, wait a minute, we still have a blockade. We still have naval blockades occurring. We still have, military actions occurring.
Well,
So-
ceasefires don't mean everybody packs up their bags and goes home.
Right. But that's their point, right? Their point is that a ceasefire does not mean the end of the war or that the war should be paused. But at this point, nothing has come across. There's been actually no legislation. It'll be interesting to see, though. There hasn't been a lot of talk about this until last couple of days.
Mhm.
Interesting to see how this plays out in the next week
Yeah. Well,
to add a little bit more variability to it.
what's your guess?
I think we'll see. I don't think we'll see any action as long as it sort of continues in this sort of ceasefire, quote unquote, negotiation period. But I
Mhm.
think if something were to escalate or go in the other direction, then yes, it would. I think you would definitely see Congress trying to step in.
Good. Well,
But
let's
I
jump.
don't know what they would do, right? I mean, what are they going to do? Just say, stop this? And is it like the tariffs where, okay, you can no longer, take military? I don't fully. It'd be worth looking into a little bit more.
Well, I think the reality of that comes from that in that setting is that there's a big political risk now to come. We're here, right? We're there. We've the country's done everything they can to knock out so far without leveling the country, has done everything they can to stop the enrichment of uranium and so forth. And so by saying, okay, just, no, this isn't authorized. Let's turn the ships around and let's get any troops that are out. And let's just go back to life as usual. Now the total spin on that from the opposite end of that, or the other side of the aisle, so to speak, is, okay, do you want to be the ones responsible for them now enriching uranium and, this, that, and the other? So I think it's a very difficult place. And no question in my mind that that the administration looked at this component of it and said, let's just get in there and get going. And it'll be too tough to leave because anybody that says they want to leave looks like that they're acknowledging that it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
But there's certainly been a lot of Democrats that believe or have stated that this war is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this.
You mean
all of that.
Republicans to go along with the Democrats on that side?
Some.
I mean, most of the Democrats, it's anything that this administration, and this is the sad state of this country, right? And it's, you look at the challenge that goes with it right now is, we both live in California. If you turn the television on, it doesn't matter what you're watching. if you turn the television on, it is just hardcore one side against the other. And it's not about what's best for, our guests that are here on the show or anybody here. I mean, I joke and say the People's Republic of California. I was talking to somebody yesterday at our offices down the hall, that's he's in the mortgage business. And we were just talking about the fact about living in California, and you pay 13%, personal income tax, but what do you get for that? I try and look at it as I saw somebody say a while back that living here is, and you and I both live within a few miles of the ocean, and the comment was, look at that 13% as an admission tax, not an income tax.
Yeah.
Right. So it's your what you pay to be able to live near where you live and see snow-capped mountains. But I just think you look at this and this is just so partisan on anything that's going to get done. And when you have a lightning rod type bombastic president that we have now, it's just going to be that much more.
So we'll see what happens over the next week.
Well, we're 32 minutes into the show. We've not talked about tariffs, so let's do that really quick. There's a great article in the newsletter from the Harvard Business School. Talks about tariffs leave consumers and companies splitting the tab. We've kind of talked about that over and over again. It's my comment about what's Costco going to give me back if they get their $200 million from the government. Any thoughts on this discussion here, Tom?
Well, I think this is the first time where we've actually seen a number, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what they're saying here is consumers shouldered 43% of the tariff burden. Usually these Harvard Business School reports are pretty thorough and pretty well put together.
Pretty good source, right?
Yeah. So, and then I believe the remainder of it was then shouldered by the 57% shouldered by the businesses, right, that are doing that. So now, obviously, if you were to double click into that, there would be a lot of other. What does that mean as the consumer, right? Who are they calling the consumer, especially, and let's say in our world of distribution, is the consumer the contractor? Is the consumer the homeowner? Who is the consumer, right?
Yeah.
And their example there. So I think there's definitely more, homework to do there. But yes, to the point that we've been talking about, certainly the wealth or the burden has been spread around. We knew that. I don't think that's rocket science to know that the burden and the costs have been spread around. And as I've said before, the recovery and the refund process is not going to be entirely fair. It just won't be, right? So to your point, is Costco or some of these big retailers, will they try and make it a little bit more fair? Will they use this as a way to build goodwill? We'll see, but there'll be a lot of manufacturers or importers or so forth. They're going to just go, I'm taking the money. Thank you. And moving on.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
I'm surprised we've not seen any major lawsuits from consumer groups to go against this.
Well, maybe they are. We just haven't seen them.
Well, we would see them because we scour the news every day for these things, Tom. Or one of us does at least. So we would be seeing that from the things that we watch for the show here, if that were the case. I would assume that some of that is going to happen, and that's why part of we had our friend Nick Pericles on the show a few months ago, and we were all kind of threw our bets in for tacos, and I think was can't remember what I said Q1. You said, was it September? You said before the midterm, wasn't it? And Nick said before the end of the year, something like that.
Nick before the midterm. I said before the end of September.
Okay. My guess is, and that's why I pushed into the new year. My comment on that, I think we have a lot left to see. Of one, is the process going to work, and two, what other lawsuits are going to come. Now, I think
the process with the portal, right, that we talked about last week, I believe it will start dispersing refunds here, and as it said, in the next, will now be about 45 days. So probably by the middle of June, somebody will be getting some refunds. How much refunds they are, to what quantity, is that through the noise of the lawsuits?
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff. Yes, is Bob's question here. This we talked a lot about this last week, right? Is that not only just companies are allowed, but it's the importer, it's the person of record who paid the tariff. Right?
Correct.
So it's not just a company, it's who was that, business of record that paid the tariff, of which then could be, again, passed on to other, downstream other businesses and or the consumer, potentially all the way at the end of the food chain.
Hey, I look at, I've been saying this the entire time, right? And this is my view. And now I'm playing into this, right? You were here at our house the other day. I'm getting ready to do quite a bit of work, or I'm not. My wife is getting ready to direct quite a bit of construction work and home repair stuff coming up shortly. Guess what? It trickles down there. So we're going to get to the new roof on our house. There are increased prices in lumber and roofing materials and equipment and tools and so forth. And manufacturer is going to go back, and let's just say my
So tell all your contractors to put their tariff line item on your invoice so that you can.
But that's the problem, is they're not going to have it because it depends. And this is what I go back to all the time in this discussion, right? So let's just say he's the, contractor's coming and they're going to be, putting a new roof on, right? So let's just say he went out and bought a new saw or bought a box of saw blades, right? And those saw blades had a tariff. Well, guess what? Let's just say it's Milwaukee Tool. Milwaukee Tool paid a tariff on that, but then they sold those to Ganal Lumber, as an example. Depending on how Milwaukee Tool invoiced that to Ganal Lumber, that's, they're 8 or 10 locations here near where I live. And if that got passed on in a line item to Ganal, then Ganal has an ability to go back to Milwaukee and say, hey, there's the flag. But I can almost guarantee you that distributors are not putting line items to the contractor that says, here is the price increase from a tariff component, because they don't know the answer to that ultimately. And then what are the chances that my contractor that has a roofing contractor that has 2 or 3 teams is out there? I think some of the work that we're having done on our house, we got handwritten estimates. Right? It's never coming back. We're just getting a higher price, right?
Sure.
And look, I've said over and over again that that's the problem, and I've described it that way every single time. Your comment every single time is, it's not going to be fair. It's just going to happen.
Right.
But that my push and discussion about some of this stuff, really the big impact of tariffs, refunds coming in the new year, is I just have this expectation that there will be some pretty major lawsuits that may push pause on this. But I don't feel it nearly as strongly as I did about that, Tom, when we had the discussion with Nick. And you know why? Because the president's not pushing back on it.
No.
Right. I thought, sure, they were going to file some other suits and push stuff to the Supreme Court in a different way.
That if you don't ask for a refund, we'll remember that. You'll get brownie points for that, whatever that means.
Well, and then what was it? A group of congressional leaders, I think, asked large companies to find a way to pass that on to consumers too. But that's asking them is, okay, great, that's nice, congratulations. So, okay, well, let's see.
It's not going to be fair when everything's said and done. Probably you won't end up getting as many refunds out of the system as people spec through bureaucracy and other sort of, basically fine print along the way. But there will be money that will come out. It won't be fair. Like I said, there'll be a lot of noise trying to get it. And really, I guess the bigger picture is what continues to happen with the tariffs, or the tariffs going forward, and some of the new, routes that they've been taking, which you haven't seen a whole lot of conversation on that recently.
Yep. Well, so do you have your Strait of Hormuz map open this morning?
I do.
Let's check that out real quick. What's happening there? But it looks about the same. This is a screenshot from last week. Come on.
I'll refresh it.
I'm just playing with you. Nothing's moving, right?
Well, they said, I was reading that there was absolutely more traffic moving through. Right.
So not 9 a day versus 2, or?
Yeah. It's not it's not like a flotilla coming through here. That's for sure.
That's right. So, those of you that are listening to us on the recorded podcast on Apple or Spotify or whatever it might be are not seeing this, but Tom has an image up on our screen for the people that are with us live, that are on YouTube Live, LinkedIn Live, or Facebook Live, of the Strait of Hormuz. And if you were to look at this map on either side of that, I think they should just call it, I think I said this a couple weeks ago, I think they should call it the elbow of Hormuz,
Okay.
not the Strait of Hormuz. But in that big 90-degree roughly turn that we take there, there are just countless ships on either side of it, but very little movement between that. We're seeing that continuing. We have an article from AP that referencing here in the newsletter again as well, talking about the fact that companies are now having to pay all of the extra costs to move through the Panama Canal to get to other areas of that part of the world to try and route around the Strait of Hormuz, and it's quite costly. So now we went to, says inventory carrying costs historically around $400,000 for that mover, now up to about $4 million. So this could be the upcoming geopolitical surcharge that comes with these things versus a tariff.
Yeah, I was surprised to read here that, you know, these ships turn around basically, go across the Atlantic Ocean to the Panama Canal, which now there's a big backlog at the Panama.
Yep.
I hope they have water. Hope there's water in the canal.
Yeah, they got a lot of that whole thing we've talked about a lot of times on the show about how low the water was. That was solved late last year. Lots of rain.
Okay. So that's good. So at least there's water. And, you know, there's an auction, right, to go into the canal and so they said the average price used to be around between 300,000 and 400,000 to go through the canal. But now the average is more like 450 with some, I think companies paying up to $4 million to kind of skip the line and get through as fast as possible. So
capitalism at its best, right?
Panama Canal. Did we ever take over the Panama Canal? Wasn't that something we were going to do?
Who's we you're talking about?
Wasn't the U.S. going to take over the Panama Canal? Wasn't that something
We've heard a lot, Tom.
Okay.
We've heard a lot.
Okay. Do we own Greenland now?
Well, Greenland is actually now part of the Panama Canal as well. So
it's all part of the same thing. Okay.
So it's a whole buying consortium now and transportation. You know, it's interesting, right? You think about that. There is a impact to the value of Greenland. There's an impact to making sure the Panama Canal stays open in the right way. But the idea of needing the rhetoric that says we're going to take it over is a little bit silly, right? I think having some control and some influence on what happens in those places are important to, you know, national security as well as the economy. But it's as we joke about all the time, right? It's like sometimes, and I'm trying to learn this as someone who talks a lot. I'm trying to learn from the current president in the U.S. that sometimes it's better that less is more, right? Make your statement and shut up. So, but there is some value.
I don't know what own means, Bob, but anyway, the Panama Canal is certainly looking like a beneficiary of a lot of this right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But some of that, right? That could help go to our, you know, deficit and offset some of the other things.
Well, that's what made me laugh at that is, you know, when there's talk of Iran wanting to extract a surcharge for that. And you know, it's funny about this is if you think back to 1700s, 1800s, what would this be called of this Strait of Hormuz charging $2 million and, you know, $4 million potentially to transit the Panama Canal? What would it be called centuries ago?
Extortion?
Piracy.
Oh, well, sort of.
You're blocking trade, right? And that's what historically most governments have been absolutely against is, you know, I can't remember what they call it, but the U.S. has been fully behind it, was the idea of having, you know, open oceans and free passage and so forth and never stopping commerce. But, you know, what do you do with that shipment from a shipper that, you know, can't afford the $4 million
Yeah.
and in that setting, and there's certain commodities, I'm sure that somebody's willing to pay whatever it's needed to get that through. But if you stop and think about this, there's a picture at this article. There's container ships that are trying to move in and out of the Strait of Hormuz, and now they're going to go around it through with this extra charge to go through the Panama Canal. There's container ships that have 10,000, 20,000 containers on them. It's just astounding what's on these things. Everything that's sitting on your desk probably was on a container ship at some point. And so you think about that now, going back to the audience that we talk to every day, all day, is wholesale distributors and manufacturers, is it's going to drive prices up and oftentimes delays again. So stability might be great, huh?
But hey, let's move ahead, because speaking of that, Amazon, we're moving into our next section now. We good leaving economy?
Yeah.
Amazon launches a China-to-U.S. warehouse pipeline.
Yep.
So what's that all about?
Well, they're talking about being able to stage bulk inventory in the Shenzhen hub. So Shenzhen, China, is one of the areas where most of your consumer, I'm going to say most, but a very large component of your consumer electronics and electrical parts and so forth are coming out of there. And they're talking about having a hub, and that'll funnel it directly to the U.S. and use their customs, their freight, international freight, and then all of their AI tools for replenishment management and so forth. So what they're trying to do is, and this is interesting, right, is, and think about how astounding this is, Tom, with Amazon. I've seen a couple times recently on LinkedIn some old video clips of Jeff Bezos talking about what the plan was for distributing books, right? And now what this is talking about is disintermediating, literally probably hundreds, if not thousands of, middlemen, freight brokers, logistics, 3PL companies, and so forth, by just saying, hey, we'll handle it all for you. Don't worry about it. And now we're looking at this, and it's interesting if you think about this. Some of what goes with this is that, when did Amazon finally make a profit? It wasn't on shipping, me a new suitcase yesterday, which arrived because I'm traveling too much and busted a wheel. But it was on AWS, right? On their Amazon Web Services. When they went into cloud storage is when they started making money. And so now we're looking at this shift outside of this. And, Joe Bag of Donuts, who orders a new baseball mitt, is not thinking about all the other things Amazon does, but to help power the funding behind the shopping that people do every day, all day, is other services like this that they do, like AWS. And now they're getting into the fulfillment business fully outside of just their third-party customers.
Right. So from what I understood from it is, if you're a offshore or Chinese manufacturer or whatever, just dump everything into this warehouse and we'll take care of it from there and speedily get it over, with the efficiency, get it over into the US and other places.
Well, and it's shrinking the moat that so many people had by having large U.S. warehouse facilities around what they're doing, right? There was a big moat there that said this, and now they're talking about the supply chain side of things. They're talking about being able to reduce it by 7 days. I think a big component of this is, if you think about it from their standpoint, is them being able to use their customs services. And so if you imagine what, international air freight that Amazon's already doing, think about where their rates are that they already have. And then the logistics that happen on, getting customs taken care of, it's significant.
Well, and they were definitely saying that there was going to be, downstream impact on, like you said, all of the different other sort of localized places. And, why do I need to have all of these different, localized, local distributor or local warehouses and things like that?
Yeah.
If I get everything through.
Well, they're talking about, the kind of soundbite out of this: 45% lower storage costs, right? 7-day speed bump, replenishment to the U.S. facilities completed up to 7 days faster. And you've got one source for doing all this. And I think if you think about it, I don't think it impacts a distributor in the same way in this setting that it does a manufacturer. But look, one of you and I, the two of us, right? We could go on Alibaba right now and start looking at some things that we wanted to source and develop the around the horn and wholesale distribution tool line. Probably don't even need to go to China to get that all set up. Let's just say we wanted to make a line of hand tools, screwdrivers and chisels or something like that, under the Around the Horn brand, and we could have that up and running and then go use this logistics solution and now be competing against Stanley Black & Decker or DeWalt or whoever that might be, because from a supply chain standpoint, which that would have been the biggest component or challenge for us at that stage, right?
Well, and they said this is especially disruptive for consumables. You mentioned tools, safety products,
Sure.
right? Things along those lines, which
Yeah.
would make sense.
No, it's powerful
I
time.
think we should get some Around the Horn N95 masks, maybe. That's a high profit, high margin market that we should enter into.
Tom, an earlier time in my life, I've literally sold probably, I don't know, tens of millions and millions, probably tens of millions of dollars worth of those. So I would prefer to stay away from those, but let's go find some other low margin, low cost, highly competitive product to get involved with.
Yeah.
But it now would be that's really going to be an interesting tool if you can work with, and who wins?
Think about that. We've been to a bunch of these shows, right? I've been to a bunch of shows with safety stuff or whatever. How many of those N95 Chinese companies that were there at the shows selling different variants of N95 masks?
Right.
Right. Well, that puts them potentially in a better position.
Absolutely. Now I think what this really brings is the opportunity for a much higher level of competitors.
Sure.
Right. And, there's not been, I don't know that some of the manufacturers that are trying to sell direct, when you bring a group of people that don't barely speak the language to this company and to this country and are half asleep in the foreign trade zone that gets set up at some of these industrial shows, I don't think they're having great results. But now they could just work with, and they're already doing a lot of private label work. And if you're, I'm thinking of a good friend of mine that's up the Pacific Northwest that runs a safety and industrial supply company. They're already private labeling all kinds of stuff, but now they get to go now quickly look at this and say, okay, well, we're working with, these brokers, a lot of times companies that are doing a lot of white label or private label importing of things. They're working with third-party logistic companies that are their representative there. Maybe instead of a large staff of those people, you need a person there that is working with an Amazon rep. And in all frankness, I'm just thinking of my good friend Andy about this, is that, I could see, and they're in the Pacific Northwest already, I could see a rep from Amazon showing up to a large distributor that says, if you're importing stuff under your own private brand, let's get rid of all 5 companies that you have to work with to make that happen. We already have a relationship with the factories that you're buying from, of bringing stuff into our center. It's a whole new world.
Yeah.
So, all right, where do you want to go next? So why don't we spend some time on go into technology a little bit, Tom? Right?
Okay.
What appeals to you there? What excites you? There's an interesting article there about the cost of compute outstretching the cost savings. Basically, it's cost of compute is more expensive than the people.
Yeah, we are really, I believe, running into this barrier of resources, compute resources, power resources. We keep hearing, I think there's an article we have here more and more about, hey, things are moving past the traditional chat bot, right? Where most people have been exposed to AI. And, the idea of all of these autonomous agents running, whether they're in business or procurement or workflow, I think that's the next thing that's there. But think about right? When you run a chat bot, maybe you have a conversation for, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe longer. You're stopping in between. It's not continually running. And so, and that, in some cases, right, you'll run out of resources. If you're using Claude and using their high-end model, they'll basically throttle you or govern you on those that are there. But think about autonomous AI agents that could, in theory, be running 24/7.
Right.
About the amount of compute power that is required for that, right? Just the compute power that's needed for that. And then obviously the cost of power and all of the energy that is behind that. So we have a real, I, we have a real, I think, we've talked a lot about the trough of disillusionment. I don't think it's the trough of disillusionment. I think it's the trough of lack of resources. And
Well, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
they may cause the trough of disillusionment, right? But I do believe that if we had the resources, the speed of which we would see a lot more things coming together and being incorporated, right? And obviously those costs are being passed on to us. I mean, even if you look at like coding, AI coding, the amount of money that's being spent on AI coding tokens, and I know ourselves this week we probably spent more than I'd like to admit, and we're not, anywhere near some huge company that's potentially spending millions of dollars a month on compute tokens.
Why do you drop bombs on me like this on live show so I can't respond and ask hard questions?
What, like how much we spent?
Yeah.
We spent, I think, $200. So,
Okay, that's fine.
yeah. But my point is, it's not, it can add up quickly, right? And it is adding up quickly. And so anyway, my point being on all of this is, and this is the point of this article, right? It's much more expensive now to run AI and AI agents, or as expensive than it is with human workers. Now you could argue, well, okay, maybe it's more expensive, but they run 24/7. They, show up, they don't have issues, they don't get sick, all of that kind of stuff. And there may be some truth to that, but again, it's not, it's not certainly free.
Well, I think the challenge with what you just said there is that there's too much human nurturing and guidance that's still needed with these agents, because I think we're still, we're in the early innings of this, if we're even started the baseball game yet, so to speak, in this setting. So I think my view of this is kind of multifaceted. It's early, so you have the expense now. You still have people, right, involved in most of these things, and we're starting to spend this money. I think the other component of that is in looking at this is that how they're being charged for is, unless you're probably a technology company and understand fully what's going on with this. But if you're, let's just go back to, our audience here in wholesale distributors and manufacturers, and I'll use distributors in this setting, right? Unless you have some reasonably sophisticated people within your company on your IT side of your business, or people that want to go learn pretty quickly, is the whole concept of how you're going to pay for these things, and what is a token, and what's token intensive and not token intensive, and have a policy about which model, right? Are you using Opus 4.7, or are you using ChatGPT whatever version, and are you maximizing token usage? What are you doing with this? Most people aren't in a position to do that, and they're used to paying. They went from saying, I'm buying Microsoft Office and I get a box of disks that I then go put it on my server for my company to access. They paid for a box of software, so to speak. Then you go to the next level where now we're paying a SaaS fee on a per user base that people now have their arms around. And now to say, oh, by the way, you might have a per user cost, but then you're also going to have this variable cost. And we can't even tell you what that variable cost really is and how to manage it. Mm-hmm. So back to your comment about trough of disillusionment, right? If you're listening today and you're not familiar with that, that is part of the Gartner hype cycle concept, right? We have this big in new technological advancements. We have a big run up, right? And then everybody gets excited. And I think that's where we've been. And maybe we're at the top of that and starting down. But there becomes a trough of disillusionment where people are going, I'm not getting the value, or it's more trouble than it's worth, or there's some frustrations that come out of that. Or disillusionment is the term they're used, right? And then we get into this place where now it becomes commonplace and adopted. Fair enough description?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
So I'm sure the Gartner people would like it to be much more extensive than of a description with that. But I think we are starting. I was text messaging yesterday with a chief digital officer of a major distributor, and we were talking about some of the events that he's invited to and goes to, and there's an event later this year that he was invited to that covering the cost. They're covering the cost of him being there because of the size of his company and so forth, and his title and so forth, which is great, for them to be there. But when you have a room full of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 people that say, I sell AI, and you're a wholesale distributor and you're trying to get your arms around all of this. And it's great that there's these events available for people to kind of see the latest and greatest. But what real value is XYZ company getting? And a lot of them are starting to get some really good value, but most of the value that we're seeing so far is not autonomous. And it's funny, I was talking yesterday with our client success manager at LeadSmart about this, and we were talking about all of the wonderful ways that we're using AI in our company at LeadSmart, and some of the amazing things that the development team that works for you are doing, and the people on my team that are using it to make their jobs better and faster and achieve more. But there's a limited amount of autonomous agents that we have running in our business, and we're a leading company in the category. And I think most people I would question the true level of autonomous agents that are running in any businesses these days yet, unless you are some of the largest, most advanced technology companies out there. And I'm going to stop right there before I even finish, Tom, and get your take on that.
Yeah, I don't think it's basically what you're saying, right? It's not practical. It's not practical from an oversight perspective. It's not practical from even an infrastructure, governance, security perspective. It's not practical from a cost standpoint. Will it become practical? Will we? I mean, the second article here, right, from Distribution Strategy, talks about all the big Anthropic, OpenAI, Microsoft, NVIDIA.
The big seven, right? That they're talking about. Everybody wants it.
They are continuing to make. If you listen to the earnings reports this last week, which Microsoft, Google, Meta, several of the big Magnificent Seven had earning reports this week, pretty much all of them said, we're going to continue to spend. We are continuing to spend. We are going to build out more infrastructure. And, the winner here is going to be the people who can provide the compute at the reasonable cost.
Yep.
And the big assumption would be, and I tend to agree, I tend to agree that if the compute and the capability is there at a reasonable price, the demand will more than be there, right? But yes, right now, practically, we're running into that wall of the things for the reasons I just talked about. Is that I think the caution that we should make sure that we discuss here is just because we're running into a practicality barrier right now doesn't mean that it's going to go away and not become something in the future that is going to become very, very relevant and real. Right? We've just reached that sort of practicality barrier right now, and again, there's no shortage of money going into it, but it's not easy, right? It's a hard job. I mean, it's not easy to build a data center. It's not easy to have the power sources. I think Microsoft said in their earnings report they're now making an official offer for was it 7 Mile Island or 3 Mile Island, or the one that's in the thing out there, and
3 Mile Island.
Yeah, and they're also doing some sort of small nuclear reactors that they're looking to put together. I mean, this is not easy stuff that is being undertaken to move this forward. But yes, I think we've run into a bit of a practicality barrier. And again, it doesn't mean we should stop using AI, but the
Oh, no,
idea,
no, no, no.
the
We'll
idea
get
of
there.
this autonomous agent basically running your whole business is
Mhm.
probably not as soon as we would like for the reasons we just discussed.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're so good. This is a great article that Mark Brohan wrote here, and I appreciate him doing that. And it kind of leads to what we're seeing right now is when you think about autonomous agents running, and we're going to just continue to see more and more of those, and we want to embrace it. We're doing it with our product, right? And we've got our Genius Feed solution and so forth. That's 24/7 looking at what's going
Yeah,
on
but
in
it's not
ERP. And
running 24/7. We're not eating up tokens and stuff
no,
24/7 and analyzing data and making, true autonomous agents. We're not doing, and nobody is really. It's not, it's just, like I said, it's not practical.
but having tools that are running that are looking for ideas and solutions within, and this is what Mark's referring to here, right? Is you've got your ERP company is launching some of these things and so forth. There's a disconnect there, and I guess maybe we should address that. What we're talking about at a low compute rate that you're talking about is what we do with Genius Feed and some other things like that that are running in the background. When you start trying to run entire operations on code that you're writing within some of these, whether it's you're working with Claude's taking over a whole solution within an organization, then you start eating up large levels of compute in large organizations.
Mhm.
Is that reasonable to put it that way?
Yeah, I mean, think about, I don't know. I mean, obviously every organization is a little bit different, but there are things that can be monitored and updated and decisions made and actions taken in theory 24 hours a day, whether that's in
Mhm.
a warehouse, whether that's in looking for marketing opportunities or sales opportunities or dealing with leads, or I mean, there's just all kinds of things that can be done, right?
Right. Mhm.
And anyway, the point being here is we're kind of at this interesting point, right? The cost of getting to the next level that everybody wants to do is a little bit prohibitive,
Mhm.
but at the same time, there's a lot of investment taking place by these big, hyperscalers and everybody else that to continue to push this through.
Right.
So it's
Good.
just I think Bob brought a good point here, right? Is there's been so much hype by the open AIs of the world or the Claudes or the NVIDIAs or whatever about all of the things that AI has the capability to do. And it's not that they're wrong. It's just now you're running into the practicality of this, which is slowing things down and isn't moving as fast as it's one thing it's real easy to have an idea and a vision. It's another to actually make that real in the real world.
Well, and there's some at some level, right? And that's what we're seeing here is that just because you can doesn't mean you should.
What's the
Just because
example?
there's a capability of something doesn't mean it's practical to do it on a consistent
No,
basis. So
no,
just
but if
because there's,
was cheap and inexpensive, you would do it,
Mhm.
right?
And we'll get there.
I
Right.
mean,
We'll get there.
it's like you look at you look at just the cost of electricity, which isn't necessarily cheap,
Mhm.
but I mean, I know last month we had a lot of heat and stuff here. Did I think about running the air conditioner? No, I just turned on the air conditioner. I wasn't sitting here going, now was my electric bill or our electric bill a little bit higher? Sure. But was it enough for me to stop running the air conditioner? No.
Mhm.
But if it was going to cost me $3,000 to run the air conditioner for a couple of days, I wouldn't have run the air conditioner, right? It becomes a point where the cost and the utility, right, and the value that you're getting has to balance out.
You're allowed to turn the air conditioning and the heat on in your house without permission? I'm
Yeah,
not. I have to ask permission by the one that pays the bills.
well, don't you pay the bills?
I give money to someone who pays the bills.
Okay.
It's different.
So would you have to put like quarters in a coin box or whatever to turn on the heat or the?
No, I just have to ask.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I
No.
know she's not listening because she's on an airplane coming home from
Okay.
being visiting the kids in Colorado for a week. So I can't wait for her to get home.
All right.
And I have not had the heater or
You can ask her if you can turn on the heater.
I have not had the heater or the air on. So yeah, so it doesn't really matter. So following up to that, there's a Bain and Company article and that we have featured here as well today about the rise of autonomous intelligent procurement. And they talk about AI-enabled procurement can increase a company's return on investment up to 5 times while boosting productivity by 60%. And early adopters are compounding advantage with one scaled agentic AI solution alone projected to save up to 180 million. But I think this is interesting because the first thing that it said there in this article, again, this is a Bain company, and we've used a couple of sources today that I want to start using more and more with what we had there from Harvard Business School, and then this of Bain and so forth is great to have. And we could talk about this for a moment briefly, Tom, as well, though. But there's the two components, right? No, Bob, my wife does not have a lockbox over the thermostat. He just commented there, but she has an incredible amount of impact and control on me. So she doesn't need a lockbox. She has my my willingness to submit to what she describes and I would say dictates. That's not fair. Darlene is just very cautious about when the heater is on and when the air is on. So that's it. No lock boxes. But back to this article, Bain and Company here, they use this term, right? And we've used it historically with our software, as a lot of other people do as well. But I think whether it's AI technology built into software you're using, or it's how you are using it in your business, is that term AI enabled versus autonomous agents is the big thing that people are trying to figure out right now, right? Is, do we have some tools that have AI embedded in them that are helping us? Those are very reasonably cost solutions that also have a very low cost of compute, I would suggest, that goes with that, versus do we want to try and truly create fully autonomous sections within our business? Is that a reasonable way to look at that, Tom? And what are your thoughts on this particular article as well?
Yeah, no, I think so. Again, this was talking though about, again, autonomous agents doing procurement, right? Running around, looking at websites, negotiating deals, finding things, right? That's not a resource. It's a resource intensive set of agents. It's not even just one agent. It's a set of agents doing those things.
Yep.
That are there. And you start gathering a lot of data, right, from different websites, and then you're having the agents process that. All of that is tokens, and all of that is cost.
Right.
It's there. So to me, it's just another flavor of what we just talked about. What's saying here, it's an increase a company's return on investment by boosting productivity by 60%. I don't disagree with that if we can do it.
Yep. Well, I think what you're just saying there ties really well. We've got a couple articles down. We have an article there from CFOdive.com that says AI could unlock 10 margin points of growth for CFOs by 2029, according to Gartner, right? But it says to capture the margin upside, CFOs need to align AI and technology investment to business outcomes. And I think that's a big part of as we were describing earlier, the risk of the trough of disillusionment of that is, okay, we've got a big investment. We spent all this money. Now, what are we getting from it? But if without a roadmap, you're putting yourself in a difficult spot without a roadmap and expectations. Right.
So I think the winners here, and I think there's an article on this. Maybe this is the next article here, the one from Distribution Strategy in the next section, is maybe there are some practical barriers like we've just discussed that you're up against, right? Or we're all up against right now. But the thing to be doing is getting your foundation in place, whether that's your data, your agent fabric of how you're running the agents and how they're being governed and how you would utilize these and how you would orchestrate this and manage this and the technology platforms that you're using. Because when these things start to get solved, and they will get solved, right? And I think this is what the next article says here. The winners are going to be the people that have invested in having the infrastructure and can take advantage of it.
Correct.
Right? If you don't have the infrastructure, we could have unlimited capacity and so forth, but you're going to not be able to take advantage of it if you don't have the infrastructure. There was something in a previous article, it's the first time I've heard it, called sprawl, agent sprawl, or AI sprawl.
Yep.
Where you've got all these things running all over the place with no governance, no visibility, you talk about siloed data, you talk about siloed AI and AI agents. It's like, that is a recipe for complete disaster, right?
Yeah.
Over time. So anyway, my point being And I think this is what this article is saying is now is the time, in my opinion, to take the time to get the right infrastructure in place so that as these become more affordable and more practical and so forth, you're in a place to take advantage of them because others will be. And if you have to, if it all comes together and now you're a year or two behind on the infrastructure, it's almost impossible to recover.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and so this was kind of leading to having this plan, having some guardrails built in, understanding things, and that kind of leads us to, there's a couple articles here. We won't dive deep into them, but there's a couple articles in our technology, cybersecurity, and robotics section, which, by the way, as a reminder, we are referring here in the show today. If you're listening versus watching, we're looking at our email newsletter that goes out each week. It's called Around the Horn at Wholesale Distribution and Manufacturing. If you do not get that and you would like to, we'd love to send that out to you. You could just pop us a note at hello@leadsmarttech.com or go to the website for the podcast, aroundthehornpod.com. You can sign up for that. So we dive into our cybersecurity, robotics, and technology section. Here we talk a little bit about cybersecurity, and there's an article from cybersecuritydive.com, which is great. This hashtag dive.com, I'll say, organization has great HR stuff, great marketing, and great CFO related things, as well as cybersecurity. So this cybersecuritydive.com, and they talk about fundamental tension undermines manufacturer cybersecurity. It says simple security mistake could cause roughly 1/4 of all financial losses in the sector of manufacturing. Cybersecurity insurer talked about doing, but on a broader scope of this is, and I was talking to a prospect for us at LeadSmart yesterday, and we were just talking about the overall procurement process. And I asked him what his view on security was, because this particular company had just, had this, I don't know, 50, 70 criteria points in a spreadsheet about what they wanted, the technology that they were looking at. They were looking solely at the CRM to start with in that setting. And they were, doing a traditional enterprise, RFP, RFQ type solution. And I asked him about the security component, and it wasn't that he was shocked that I brought it up, but it wasn't on their list. And they asked about what you're going to do with our data, but there was nothing in depth about security. And, you talk about this oftentimes, is not about the risk of not having a structure in place and guardrails on your AI and so forth, because, you don't want somebody to do a query, whether you're using a Slack bot or you're, I was with one of our customers last week, I should say, and their CEO was showing me that they've got Microsoft Teams tied into being able to look at HR policies. You can ask, their within Microsoft Teams on the mobile app, you can hit the chat bot that they've built and installed there that accesses their data lake, and you can ask a question about vacation policy. Well, if you don't have good AI guardrails in place and good system guardrails in place, that question or the next question might be, what is our CEO's stock plan? And you might just get that answer.
You might.
Right? What is our profit margin as a company for the whole year that is private data, because it's a privately family-owned company in some instances. So I think that's a big place that we're in right now.
Well, what do we want to do here? I know this
is where you stop and go, that's a really good point, Kevin.
That's brilliant. Yeah, no,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't need the ChatGPT or the cloud response.
You're used to that positive reinforcement.
I do. I'm in need of that on an ongoing basis.
Okay.
That's exactly. I will acknowledge that I can be needy.
That is an excellent. What would you a good ChatGPT response?
That is so insightful.
It's insightful and groundiness in the right place.
Yes, perfect.
Something like that. Yes.
If I ever need that positive reinforcement, I just need to go do a voice chat with ChatGPT or Claude, right?
You should put it on cynical, and then it kind of talks back to you like, "Are you out of your mind?"
I have you for that.
Okay, that's true.
I'm
in the cynical mode. Yeah, that's right.
I have two people in my life for that.
Okay.
So I have you and the beautiful woman that's on her way home. So no, and the funny part about that is you were in town this week and my wife was out of town, so I was able to actually have dinner with you without two of you picking on me.
Yeah, you only had
So,
one
'cause
person.
you guys certainly know how to team up, which is probably, and anything I get is probably deserving. So let's pick one more for the day before we call it quits. What do you want to chat about?
This article from MDM, right?
Mhm.
I kind of hit home because I kind of wrote a book on this topic here, where they're talking
You,
about buying
you wrote a
decisions.
book?
I did. I did.
Uh,
You
Oh,
see it?
look, it's right behind you. Yeah. What's it called?
The revenue zone.
Where can you get it?
You can get it through Amazon. They ship it right from China immediately, right through the
Right.
warehouse
Yeah, it goes right through there.
pipe and everything. But the book's a couple years old now, but it's, I think, more relevant than ever. And that's
Mhm.
what this article is talking about, is most B2B buying decisions actually happen in the dark funnel, meaning that a lot of companies are doing their own research and they're doing their own um, everything as much as possible before they
Mhm.
actually want to talk to a sales rep, right? Again, this is another area where you'll see, once you have practical capabilities, is agentic research taking
Right.
place in a lot
Mhm.
of the things that are here. Um, I was interested, and I wanted your take on this. When I wrote the book, I didn't write the book from the viewpoint of the manufacturer or the wholesale distributor, but do you see the same sort of, in what use cases or what scenarios would you see this, being applicable to, say, a wholesale distributor or a manufacturer, where people are doing a lot of their homework, they're not calling to talk to the rep or immediately calling for a quote or
Mhm.
whatever. Where does this fit?
Well, I think it ties really well to all of the activity we're seeing in the e-commerce world, right? Right now within distribution. I mean, almost all of our core customers are, really working and enhancing their ability to expand and develop the better fit within their overall overall web presence to be playing in that setting. We've had a lot of articles about agentic search and AEO versus SEO and so forth to go with that. So I think everybody needs to be in a place where they're
So is
playing in
that
this.
saying that the e-commerce is supporting this dark funnel and
Well,
enabling this dark funnel to a degree?
well, I think that component of it is. I'm not sure I'm following your question fully, but I think
Does e-commerce enable, right, the
sure.
customer to do that research and
Mhm.
homework and do all of those things, even
Yeah.
potentially get a self-serve quote or estimate without having to, quote unquote, talk to the salesperson?
Of course. I mean, we've seen and we've Mike Marks has talked about this on this show and in a number of other presentations. I can't remember what the number is, but the number is ridiculously high of B2B buyers that have expressed the idea that they would like to do a kind of a faceless purchase for the most part. And you talk about this in your book, and we talk about it all the time with our customers. And it ties right into what I started the show describing what we do at LeadSmart is your customer has lots of journeys and you need to track them across your journey, right? And one of those journeys is your because you don't know what else your customer necessarily is doing online. Yeah, if you did some really sophisticated trying to cookie tracking and stuff like that, maybe. But in general, you don't know where else they're going and what else they're doing in general. So you need to understand that customer from every component that they're looking at you, and you have data on your customer from what the truck driver tells your branch counter person when he stops off to pick something up about a frustration they're having with another vendor, or somebody was out of stock on something and now he's visiting you for something. That all should be in your CRM. You have the data from your marketing automation tool about what events are people coming to, what promotions are they taking advantage of. You've got the e-commerce journey. What are they clicking on? What videos are they watching? What did they maybe ask for a quote on or check pricing? And you've got then their transactional journey, which is that rear view mirror view of what's happening with your customer in their ERP transaction. And never before have we been in a place where following the entire journey of the customer. And this is, I probably sound like I'm on a soapbox here now, but I believe if you're in the wholesale distribution arena and you are not tracking and looking at all of your customer journey, you're missing it. And this description of what you're just talking about there, right, is this dark journey. You'll never know what they're doing in that setting unless they pop their head up and ask you a question. But if you're tracking all of your customers' journeys with your organization and then applying AI against that, that's when you get the insight as best as you can. So there's a 5-minute response to a question that I'm not even sure I answered exactly what your
Well, I
question.
think that's actually quite good. Is that and those came from NDM, right? So this came from
Yeah, some modern distribution management's
Yep.
research. Yep.
Right. So the dark funnel is alive and well, is what I'm hearing in our
Mhm.
industry.
Mhm.
It's very different, maybe, than a dark funnel for technology companies or something along those lines. But yeah, it's like if you agree and accept the fact that this is occurring, at
Mhm.
least in some cases, and maybe in a larger number of cases, yeah, absolutely. It's like, okay, then how do we mitigate that through utilizing the technology? And to me, this again, not to look, people are going to do what they're going to do, but how do you influence them? Which is what a lot of, I talk a lot about in the book, is
Right.
how do you influence that and get yourself in the competitive advantage compared to others. So
Right. Well, I mean, if you look at it from that standpoint, and it's interesting, we have that listed as that article here from MDM, but it's actually from Sales and Marketing Management.
we do.
But
Okay.
yep, it's a little hiccup on our newsletter, is what that's referencing.
Okay. So we apologize for the editorial mistake there.
But you know, our friends at NAW and MDM can thank us for the shout out for other people's work, right?
So that they can do.
Yeah. The point behind that is, I think if you take all this together, and it doesn't change where the topic came from, is and by the way, Around the Horn will be sending an invoice to Revenue Zone Media for the shout outs on the book. So we
I'll share commissions.
we need to have a referral arrangement on that, or something that we don't have. But anyways, my point is, we are living in a world where people are their buying habits, right? We know that 70+% of B2B buyers are millennials. Their buying habits are different. We were having this discussion with, I think I've had it with Stephanie in our office recently, and I think you and I have had it. Maybe the three of us had it together. Is generationally, it's astounding to look at the amount of money that we have. People that are in, I see regularly, that are down the hall from us. 22-year-olds that are having DoorDash bring Starbucks to them. They spent $20 on a coffee. The buying habits are changing. The lines are graying very quickly, and there will become very soon, I believe, no line between an expected experience between a B2B transaction and a B2C transaction. So if that is happening, the more that you can understand what your customer is doing, whether it's your customer's organization or an individual, the better you can serve them, and the better you can serve that customer, the more they spend with you.
Yep.
So that's it.
Okay.
What's the weekend hold for you?
Nothing too exciting.
No, you're going to eat some good barbecue? Is your neighbor cooking stuff up?
No, but we may make some fish and chips.
Okay, that sounds
with
good.
Alaskan halibut, fresh fish and chips with Alaskan halibut.
That sounds fantastic. I'm on my way. Good.
Okay.
Well, I'm looking forward to a couple of days where my email box is much less full than it has been this week. But appreciate everybody being with us. We love it when you join us for the show. And again, we do this every week, unless someone is in the hospital, on vacation, or an airplane. And we got a couple of times in the next couple of months where we're not going to have a Friday show, but the newsletter will always continue to go out. If you'd like that newsletter, please let us know. The one thing that we always ask, if you enjoy what you hear on our show each week, please do us the favor. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get alerted when we go live for the show. If you're with us on LinkedIn, certainly follow LeadSmart, and you'll get those alerts as well. And you can get the newsletter there. But if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or Amazon or iHeart or whatever it might be from the podcast platform, but please hit the subscribe button and even better, leave a review. And if you do that, that'll get this show out in front of more people. I think we had visitors joining us today. I saw on LinkedIn from Italy and Spain. I think one from Denmark, a handful from France. I think one from Germany, quite a few from Canada, one from Brazil. And so we're appreciative of that audience, and we love to see that audience grow. So we appreciate if you share the message of what we do each week. So we will close the day out. Tom, I wish you a good weekend, and we'll wish everybody as well a good weekend. Be kind, be safe, do good things.
Thanks, everyone.